Aye.
Thanks, Don.
Good evening. The Municipality of Anchorage Planning Board will now come to order. It is June 2nd, 2021. May we have the roll call?
Valerie Ritz,
Present.
Clayton Walker,
Present.
Kevin Cross,
Present.
Don Porter,
Present.
Mark Seward,
Present.
Jana Weltzine, absent, Karen McGillivray, excused.
Do we have a quorum?
We do.
And it's a short board?
Correct.
When the planning board has a short board, that means there's only 5 members present, and a postponement will be offered to and may be agreed to by a petitioner, then their case would be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within the next 30 days. It will not require renoticing of the case, no new public notices or advertising. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting within 30 days, they'll be given a one-time only option to choose the next date certain they can attend at no additional cost. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee under AMC 2120-007A, and a new public hearing date shall be determined by the Planning Division. This would put their case in the next available cutoff date, Q, as if they were submitting the case for the first time. Does the petitioner in case S12612, Christina Hendrickson, desire to postpone due to short board?
Good evening. My name is Christina Hendrickson. I do not wish to postpone this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now turn our attention to action summaries. We have an action summary from May 9, 2021. May I have a motion to approve the action summary? Kevin Cross has moved, and it has been seconded by Mark Seward. Is there any opposition to accepting the May 19th, 2021 action summary? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the motion passes unanimously. We'll now turn to the minutes of Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. Yes, we will be looking for amendment after the motion. Yeah, if you can,
Make a movement subject to...
or yeah. Would you like to state your motion, Kevin?
Yes, I move to approve the minutes. I do want to make a note here regarding case S12607, Plantera subdivision, lots 1 through 12, on the public hearing held on May 19th, 2021. It looks like during the meeting that 2 motions were made, shown on pages 4 and 5 of the draft minutes, that they inadvertently included an incorrect lots, and a correction will need to reflect that on the record. So I approve with the amendment stating that they should be lots 1 through 12 instead of what currently says lots 1 through 6, tract A.
Thank you, and that correction would be made on pages 4 and 5 of the minutes. Do we have a second on the motion on the floor? No, it's not, for whatever reason, it's... Mark Seward is seconded. Are there any additional corrections or amendments that need to be made to the minutes as drafted? Seeing and hearing none, is there any opposition to approving the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, the motion has passed unanimously. Next, we'll turn to special order of business. Do we have any disclosures from the board? Seeing and hearing none, we'll next turn to new business. The Plating Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If we fail to complete our agenda this evening, the Board will carry over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Public Board at its meeting is, after staff's presentation is complete on the public hearing items, I will ask for public testimony on the issue. People who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. The petitioners are given 10 minutes, including their representatives. Part of their time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, and PTAs are each given 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you will be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless the board questions you further. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the board takes. Appeal of our decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21-11-304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing becomes the final 7 days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based on the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to AMC 21-11-503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision under AMC 2130. May we have staff's presentation on case S12612, Turtle Hills subdivision, lots 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we begin, there's a slight housekeeping matter here. So after the staff report was written, Planning Department was notified that we discovered that there's that lot 14 that is owned by HLB, that there's an IGP, which is an intergovernmental permit for between Public Works and HLB. So lot 14 functions by definition as a street. So the intent of the code is met for lot frontage and access. So that will not be discussed as the project, the subdivision meets the definition of lot frontage and access. If we look at a definition of a street, it says it's an easement that provides public access, a thoroughfare improved or intended to be improved for vehicular travel, permanently open to general public use, that affords the principal means of access, frontage, and address to individual buildings. And if the IGP does reverts back to the PUE, if the permit ever goes away, which it more than likely won't, there's still the PUE, which is a street, or if can function as right-of-way there from the 1982 land management agreement. So with the staff report, we'll just be covering the subdivision and 3 variances. So I can begin my staff report here now on S12612 Turtle Hills, and that's a request to subdivide 1 lot into 2 lots, and it includes variance requests from AMC 2109-070 F5 A, local residential streets, requiring that the street shall be paved, F5D, local residential streets, for a pedestrian path bikeway of at least 5 feet in width and either paved or treated with non-dust generating material, and F5F, local residential streets for minimum cross-section dimensions for a local street. So the petition site is located north of Doran Lane, south of Diet Circle, and west of Alyeska Highway in the Girdwood Valley Service Area Board of Supervisors Community Council. The subdivision request is being made to prepare for the property for construction of dwellings on Lot 1 and Lot 2. The proposed subdivision meets the minimum lot size and width requirements of 2109-5, the Table of Dimensional Standards. So Girdwood Residential Districts, Lot 1 allows dwelling 2 family at that 16,800 square feet and single family at 10,400 square feet. For private developments comments on road improvements, the petitioner is requesting to construct a 16-foot wide gravel road with 2-foot shoulders from Alyeska Highway to the proposed driveway access for Lot 2 within the dedicated public use easement. The petitioner is going to need to secure approval of the engineered roadway plans and have a right-of-way permit in place. Traffic's comments requests that portion within the ADOT right-of-way to be developed to full standards at the intersection of the PUE and Alyeska Highway. So staff is incorporating private development road improvement comments into the conditions of approval for this preliminary plat. Conformance to adopted plans. The proposed Turtle Hill subdivision does not conflict with the goals of Girdwood Area Plan. Single-family residential development areas are designated where it currently exists, as well as on vacant land west of Alyeska Highway, with supporting infrastructure that can be to serve new development. A little background on the Title 21 standards for transportation and connectivity. They're found under AMC 2109-070 F5. That's local residential streets, and they shall meet the standard to preserve and enhance the unique character and aspirations of Girdwood. Lot 14 is a public use easement, and the variances arise to not meet the full local residential street standards of F5. And those street standards there can be found on page 8 of the staff report and the local street dimensions. So in the matter of the variance requests, there's 3 variance requests, and the first variance request is to A, which is local streets shall be paved or shall be non-dust generating, non-porous material, such as wrap or chip seal over an engineered base to allow Turtle Hill subdivision to construct a 16-foot wide gravel road with 2-foot shoulders in that dedicated public use easement. Variance 2 is a request from F5D, which is a pedestrian path bikeway of at least 5 feet in width. Variance 3 is F5F, which requires a minimum street width of 20 feet, and this would allow construction of a 16-foot wide gravel roadway with 2-foot shoulders. In the subdivision variance approval criteria, there's the standards. Standard A, staff finds that variance 1, 2, and 3 are met. The existing subdivision is not typical for a subdivision within a Class A area with an adjacent PUE being utilized for local residential street. The existing surface of neighboring roads is a mixture of gravel and recycled asphalt pavement. Granting the variance in the pavement standards will maintain the existing characteristics of the surrounding area road network. Because the current road is currently proposed to serve one parcel, it is generally agreed that full municipal standards are unnecessary. The applicant states that the subdivision fronts the paved Alyeska Highway bike path, and constructing a path would only serve the one lot that the driveway road accesses. That the road accesses. The traffic department and private development have stated that there are no objections to the requested variance from residential street standards for that proportion located within that PUE. Standard B, staff finds that standard is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. The granting of variances for pavement standards, minimum road width dimensions, and pedestrian pathway will not adversely affect public welfare or negatively affect properties in the vicinity. The proposed roadway will be a gravel surface, 16 feet wide with 2-foot shoulders, and provides access to one lot with low traffic volumes. The applicant states that there is already an adjoining bike path along Alyeska Highway, and constructed path would only connect to the one proposed lot. Standard C, variance 1, 2, and 3, staff finds that has been met. The intent of 2109-070 F5 is to ensure local residential streets have the attributes to preserve and enhance the unique character and aspirations of Girdwood. Approval of the variances would not nullify the intent and purpose of the subdivision regulations. The purpose of the standards is to ensure new development avoids adverse impacts on the environment and natural resources while maintaining and enhancing the character of Girdwood. A specific purpose of the standards is to preserve and unique natural qualities of the site and to fit the development into the land and leave its natural landforms and features intact. Because the road is currently proposed to serve one parcel, the rational nexus to require full municipal standards is not present in this platting case. Standard D for the variance 1, 2, and 3, staff finds that is met. Undue hardship could result from strict compliance with the subdivision regulations for the requirement of a full dimension paved street, separated pedestrian pathway. Strict compliance with subdivision regulations would add additional costs to the developer and ultimately home buyers. A cost estimate was not provided by the applicant, though. So in recommendations, variance 1, reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to this variance, and the standards have been substantially met. Granting the variance to paving mitigates some of the concerns about compatibility with the existing roads in the neighborhood. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this variance. Variance 2, reviewing agencies had no comment or no objection to this variance request, and the standards have been substantially met. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this variance. Variance 3, reviewing agencies had no comment or no objection to the variance, and the standards have been found to be met there as well, and staff recommends approval of the variance, subject to the conditions at the end of the staff report. The conditions found on page 14 for the 3 variances are A, B, C. However, as I noted before, D will need to be deleted from the report, as the intent of the code is met for lot frontage and access through that IGP permit. The number E4, that will need to be deleted as well. That was a revision to the subdivision plan that will not be needed because the property meets lot frontage and access I can answer any questions you may have, and the petitioner's here as well. Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for staff at this time?
Through the chair, this is Don Porter.
Don Porter, you have the floor.
I noticed that there's a tract A behind the public use easement, lot 14. What is the purpose of tract A? Will the public use easement ever be used to access tract A?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, let's see here. What page are you looking at on the staff report?
I'm just looking at the plat.
Okay. Let's see here. Let me get that page open. Yeah, so tract A is the overall HLB parcel that is, it's very large, and that was the intent there of lot 14, was to serve as right-of-way in the future development to for access to tract A when that gets developed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the staff at this time? Mark Seward?
Yes, through the chair for staff. I saw in several places in the packet where it refers to Lot 18A. Is that part of Tract A?
Let me get up to speed there through the chair, Mr. Seward. Lot 18A.
Yes, I haven't been able to find it on the plat.
There's 14A is the lot that is the owned by HLB with the intergovernmental permit for right-of-way access.
Correct. Several places in public comment and in findings, it refers to a Lot 18A.
Okay.
Maybe the applicant can answer that.
The applicant may be answer that, and there may be in the provided comments from the public, there may be some confusion of the different lots. However, do you have a page for reference?
On the bottom of page 24, in the response section, and I saw it in several other places today too, where it referred to, but it appeared that Lot 18A was in the area of Tract A.
I believe we can let the applicant answer that, that's her narrative, but I believe that she was referring to 14A for access to lot 18A. Yeah, we should ask the applicant that. I believe that was the overall large parcel owned by HLB that Mr. Porter referred to as Tract A.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing and hearing none, we will now take petitioner's representative. Did you want to reserve part of your time for rebuttal? Did you want us to punch in an amount of time for that?
Yes, I'll be speaking for 2 minutes at the beginning.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Christina Hendrickson, and together with my husband Josh, we own 1011 Alyeska Highway. For the record, our mailing address is P.O. Box 978 in Girdwood. I thank the staff for their report. It has been a pleasure to learn with them over the past year and a half and submit the application before you. I'd like to highlight some key points and reserve the remainder of my time. We proposed subdividing our lot into two. We proposed to access the driveways for lots 1 and 2 via lot 14A. 14A is a public use easement governed by PM&E and real estate via an intergovernmental permit, specifically giving them the authority to construct a public street. As such, since 2019, I've worked with the municipality to design the access and request the variances in front of your consideration this evening. As noted in both the agency routing and the staff report, municipal departments who manage this lot do not object to the variances. Page 7 of the staff report lays this out under a subsection entitled Background. Quote, Lot 14A is a public use easement, and the need for variances arise because the road is not currently dedicated public right-of-way. While there may be an intent to dedicate the road in the future, the planning department cannot suppose its dedication with this platting action. Thus, the following variances are required, unquote. In the 10% design, you'll see that we intended to reduce the street's footprint and maintain a vegetative buffer, which is very important to Girdwoodians. The street contains an emergency vehicle turnaround styled like a hammerhead and signed off on by the fire marshal. Based on the natural contours of the lot, we propose the driveways from the street that would access both lots 1 and 2. Again, both lots 1 and 2 would derive their access from the public use easement via 16-foot wide road. We agree with the department's conclusions, recommendations, and conditions, except for E4, as noted earlier in the report. I reserve the remainder of my time and remain available for your questions, but first I'd like to ask whether or not staff member from Real Estate Services might be available to discuss Lot 18A and the tract and the 3 public use easements in Girdwood that would service that tract, which is a 44-acre development proposed.
You had a question about
Is Robin on
Lot
the phone?
18A, and you
Yeah,
wanted...
is Robin on the phone?
Okay. Do we have them on the phone presently?
Through the chair, we can check with the clerk and see, but I'm not 100% positive. In the interim, Mrs. Hendricks, would you there's tract A, which is owned by HOB, and then lot 18 is located...
They're the same thing.
The same thing? Okay.
Lot 18A, track A, is to be accessed via Sproat, via this Lot 18A, and Juniper, as Juniper and Sproat have utility access.
Through the chair, Mr. Walker, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that we have HOB available.
Okay.
This is Robin Ward. I am available if you have a question.
Oh, there we go.
All right, Robin, the question you have for them is what?
It was to answer your question from previously, Chair,
All right.
or Mr. Seward's question, I mean.
Mr. Seward, would you like to restate your question for Robin?
Is lot 18A, is that part of tract A, or what is the size of that lot? As I was saying earlier, it was referred to several times in the packets, but I cannot find it on the plat, and so I was curious at the size of it. The petitioner states that lot 18A and tract A are the same. Is that true?
That is correct, and I believe that it's 44 acres slated for residential development in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
And through the chair, to circle back to Mr. Porter's question, that is what the functionality of Lot 14A would be, is to serve as right-of-way to, for access to the Tract A, Lot 18A. Some other access points That is why this Lot 14A is owned by HLB in that width configuration of this 60 feet of right-of-way, essentially, for access.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for the petitioner's representative at this time? Thank you.
Point of information, for my timing, I had asked that I have 2 minutes for this evening, and then the remainder be reserved for rebuttal. Thank you for correcting that.
43 seconds left. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the, I guess we're going to go ahead and take our call-in people first, and then we'll take the people in the room.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed.
Matthew Martin speaking.
Hello, Matthew Martin. This is the Plating Board calling for public testimony on case S12612 Turtle Hills subdivision. Are you testifying as an individual or representing a group?
I'm testifying as an individual.
You will have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Please state your full name for the record and you can begin.
Hello?
Are you there?
I am now, yes. Thank you.
All right.
No, thank you for the chance to comment. My name is Matt Martin. I live immediately north of the Hendrickson's property with my wife Julie and our 5 children, ages 6 months to 10 years old. We are opposed to the variances for 3 main reasons. First, the property owners have existing access. Second, granting the variances will negatively impact the safety of the community bike path. And third, the hardships associated with subdividing were known when they purchased the property in 2019. Julie and I would like to see the variances either denied or more time taken to investigate the concerns further. To our first point, access to subdivide the lot is currently available via a crossing that's used today for the existing structure. At least since the 70s, the lot we own has shared access with the Hendrickson's lot. For years, we've seen the occupants of the cabin on that lot 15 use that shared access as a driveway and parking area, and we have never objected to this shared access because we know that it was part of the land that we were acquiring when we bought the land. It was also a part of the land the Hendricksons bought when they did so in 2019. I personally told Ms. Hendrickson that we are willing to document this shared access as needed, but recorded or not, this access remains theirs and can't be restricted. Secondly, if approved, the variances would make the Hendrickson's crossing more dangerous than code allows. Our family uses the bike path frequently with our young children. The existing crossings can be scary. Adding a crossing is an increased risk, but making it a driveway and not a code-compliant street would be worse. If these variances are granted, the driveway would not be built to street standards, yet as a street, it will remain open to public traffic. Our biggest concern is visibility. The steep slope of the proposed driveway will require excavation, and after excavating, the visibility between the bike path and the driveway will be much worse than if a code-compliant street were to be constructed. All traffic on the crossing will be exposed to that reduced visibility. The existing access point, by contrast, has good visibility as seen in the photos in the staff packet on page 83. If the variances are denied, a fully compliant crossing while still adding risk would give at least the visibility that adheres to current Girdwood standards. And finally, the hardships brought up in the application are self-imposed by the desire to subdivide a certain way. This property was purchased in 2019 as is. From the time this was purchased, there's been no change to the land or the location of the cabin or the code and the standards in place. The difficulties brought up in the application all stem from conditions that were known prior to purchase. There would be no hardship if the owners wanted to build a driveway on their own land as is, and no variances would be required. So to close, we have no objection to the subdivision happening, but the variances shouldn't be granted because access already exists. It would lead to a crossing that's not up to Girdwood code for safety, and the hardships claimed are self-generated by the owner's intentions for a property that they recently purchased. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Matt Martin? Mr. Martin, I believe they're planning on building out a complete intersection, aren't they? Even though the roadway is only 16 feet wide, the actual intersection and crossing would be not accepted?
It's probably to the petitioner, but I'm sure that from the bike path on down the apron would be as per code, but I don't have the full answer on the 5 feet back from that.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. We'll take our next caller.
Hello, this is Betsy.
This is Betsy Connell.
Yes.
This is the Planning Board calling for public testimony on case S12612 Turtle Hills subdivision. Are you testifying as an individual or representing a group?
If I testify for myself and my husband, is that considered a group?
No, sorry. Now, your husband can testify if he's there, and he would have 3 minutes also.
Okay, well, I'll just testify for myself then.
All right, you have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Please state your full name for the record, and you can begin.
Hi, my name is Betsy Connell, and I have a strong objection to the road/driveway plan and the variances requested in case 12612. The Hendricksons wish to subdivide their property, which is their prerogative. However, building the road/driveway into their proposed front and back lots is unnecessary. They already have legal access to their property on the north side, which could be extended to reach their proposed back lot as well. They do not need to gain access by using the public use easement. The Alyeska Highway pedestrian bike path is used by many, many Girdwood residents and visitors. Any additional unnecessary crossing should be rejected for safety reasons. Building a road/driveway on the PUE may be more convenient for the Hendricksons and allow them to preserve more of their proposed back lot, but these reasons are private and only benefit the Hendricksons. A public use easement should not be used for these purposes. A great number of Girdwood landowners and residents attended the May 11th Girdwood Land Use Committee meeting and voted to pass a resolution advising the Girdwood Board of Supervisors to draft a letter of objection to this road driveway and its variances. The Board of Supervisors voted on May 17th in favor of sending this letter of objection. I have one more concern about this road/driveway project that I do need to share. The Hendricksons requested a personal use agreement for tree cutting on April 12th, the same day that it was approved and issued by Robin Ward, who is the MOA Real Estate Department Director. These permits are not publicly available on the MOA website. They must be specifically requested from the Real Estate Department. On the public use agreement, the purpose for tree cutting is not asked for. No public comment is required. Real Estate Department staff simply meet the applicant to discuss the permit. As for the personal use agreement tree cutting, the Hendricksons are allowed to remove any of the trees, not just dead ones, up to 50, from the public use easement from the day of their permit until the end of this year. Unbelievably, the Hendricksons cut down the, quote, up to 50, unquote, trees on the PUE less than a week before the Land Use Committee meeting. As was stated in the Land Use Committee meeting minutes, quote, clearing the PUE recently is of benefit only to the property owner. Clearing indicates that approval of the variances is assumed to be imminent by the real estate department prior to public process and hearing regarding it. Although input at the original discussion last year was met with resistance by community members, and as stated at the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes, quote, HLB permit to clear PUE was poorly considered as this item had not been yet discussed and required variances not approved. Granting the personal use agreement for the tree cutting prior to these public meetings is certainly fishy, if not favoritism.
Betsy.
Thank you.
Your time is up, but let me see if there's any questions from the board for you. Do we have any questions from the board? I don't see or hear any, but thank you today, Betsy, for your testimony.
May I ask one question of the board?
No, you're not in a position of asking questions. You're entitled to give testimony for 3 minutes. Is Dave?
All right, I was just curious if the letter of objection had been received by your committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Dave Connell available?
She hung up.
Okay.
Hello?
Is Dave there?
No, he's not going to testify tonight.
All right, thank you.
Question of the board?
Do we have any members of the public that are with us this evening that would like to testify on this matter?
Hello, my name is Eric Visser. I'm the owner of Visser Construction. I'll be the contractor on this project. I just wanted to make a few comments regarding the variances and also just let you guys know that we look forward to implementing the staff recommendations on this project. I will say we do have some experience with some developments around town where we have dealt with things like bike paths. We did a condo development right across from Ocean View Elementary School. We've had kids walking through there, every morning, every evening to go to school, and we were able to, set up signage and cones and fencing to better protect those kids as they cross by our job site multiple times a day. So I'm extremely confident that we'll be able to keep the public safe while we develop this property as well with residents that are going in and out of the bike path. I also did want to mention a couple of these variances relate to a draft policy that just came out by the municipal engineer, Kent Colhase. It's currently under public review, but it's basically the exact same requirements that what this variance is approved. A 16-foot wide driveway needs to support a 80,000-pound fire apparatus, and it's going to be it's out for public review. I don't see the date on it, but I think it came out like 2 weeks ago. So hopefully in the future we won't have to deal with these variances. It's actually going to be in code. So this is well within line of what the municipal's expectation is for development. And if you got any questions, I will take them now.
Just to clarify,
Yep.
you are here testifying on your own behalf and not at the behest of the petitioner.
Correct.
Thank you. And had you reached in the end?
I have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Eric Visser? Did I pronounce that right?
Visser.
Visser, and
Yep.
it's V-I-S-E-R?
V-I-S-S-E-R.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public here? Please come forward, ma'am.
Hi there, my name's Lene Dorn. I'm a Girdwood resident, and I have a written statement I'd like to read. As I said, I'm Lene Dorn, and I have lived in Girdwood for 22 years. I'm here tonight because I learned about the proposed road by the Hendricksons at the land use meeting in 2019. Today, I'd like to speak about some very important points. First and foremost, as you have heard from people about this project, it's not safe. Creating an unnecessary crossing of an already dangerous bike path where there are other far safer options is unthinkable. One only needs to stand on the bike path and look up the very steep slope to understand the PUE topography. To build a driveway to DOT grade would require a trench with the banks that stand higher than most vehicles. Not only would this crossing be incredibly unsafe, it would be located within feet of two already existing crossings. I'd like to emphasize that the Hendricksons have had the option to subdivide and provide access to their proposed rear lot via their current access, which has been in use since the late 1950s. That existing access is far safer and better visibility and a gentler topography than the PUE and will not create another bike path crossing. The reason the Hendricksons provided to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors for not utilizing their existing access and bike path crossing comes down to this. They don't want to. The reality is that by using the PUE, they preserve more of their land for subdividing. As noted by the Planning Department staff report, simply wanting to preserve more of your property for subdividing is not a reason to grant variances and does not constitute undue hardship. Additionally, this was never the intended use of the PUE. Its purpose is as a public roadway to provide access to the 43 acres of HLB land on the lot 18 behind our properties. HLB has stated that this development is years, if not decades, in the future due to the infrastructure costs. Giving a private landowner permission to build what amounts to a private driveway with variances is directly contrary to the intent of the easement. A large number of community members have provided opposition to this plan. During meetings of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors and the Land Use Committee, the local community overwhelmingly opposed this proposal. In addition, the GBOS unanimously voted to oppose this. This proposal is not safe and our bike path is already dangerous with the numerous vehicle crossings, and these variance requests are not due to any hardship and not necessary. They will also create a liability that the entire community will have to bear for years to come for the benefit of one private landowner. This really boils down to the fact that the Hendricksons have options to use their property that are safe, don't require variances, and provide them access to the rear lot. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been requested spelling of your first and last name.
You asked for it. Lene is spelled L-Y-N-N-E with a lovely accent aigu over the E, which is a French thing, so you can use an apostrophe. Last name Doran, D-O-R-A-N.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Lene Doran?
Thank you for your time tonight.
Yes. Do we have any other members of the public that wish to speak on this matter? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Joan Lauer, L-O-W-E-R.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm here to oppose these variances due to safety concerns. My husband and I live at 867 Alyeska Highway. Our property with frontage along the Alyeska Highway bike path consists of Lot 12A and 12D. Our home is just a few lots south of Lot 15. Our family has lived at this address since 1978. The bike path, when the bike path was constructed, has lived at this address since 1978, before the bike path was constructed. We remember all too well when on December 5th, 1981, our friends Lee and Lonnie Garish lost the lives of their two young sons, Scott and Wesley, as they were walking along the shoulder of the Alyeska Highway. After their deaths, our community recognized that an alternative was needed for the safety of our children. This tragic accident prompted the planning and construction of the pedestrian walkway. Our three daughters and now our young granddaughter have all used the bike path to travel and play on. While using the bike path is safer than traveling along the shoulder of the road, the bike path still presents some danger. Every road or driveway that crosses the bike path diminishes the safety of the path for our children. Parents in Girdwood have to teach their kids to stop or at least slow down, way down, at every crossing to look out for cars turning in from the highway or else driving down toward the highway. The safest crossings are those that are wide and have no trees obstructing the view, especially where the terrain is flat. Many driveways in our neighborhood are narrow and steep and have obstructed views, and we do not need another one of those. The shared apron between Lot 15 and remainder Lot 15 is one of the bike path crossings that is relatively flat, and it has a very large, clear view from both the right and the left. By contrast, the terrain of the proposed new crossing is steep and heavily forested. The proposed new access would be way less safe than the existing access, as it would be a much steeper path cutting through the forested area with trees blocking the view. We oppose the new bike path crossing, which is narrower than the Anchorage municipal standards, especially since the Hendricksons already have access to develop their land in a safe, unobstructed area. By granting their variance request, the planning board would be making a decision that would be unsafe. We're not opposed to the Hendricksons subdividing and developing their land, but we are opposed, however, to their proposal for a variance that is unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Joan Lower? Thank you, Ms. Lower.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public this evening? Please come forward, sir.
Hello, my name is Patrick Doran.
Patrick Doran.
Doran.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify tonight regarding case S12612. My name is Patrick Doran, and my wife and I and family have lived in Girdwood for 22 years. Our lot is located near the Hendrickson subdivision, and we are very active in our community. As you've read from many comments from the Girdwood community members and elected leaders of our town, there is much concern and interest regarding your decision this evening. Because the Hendricksons have access to their property and only need to extend their current driveway into a flagpole lot, I'm opposed to them constructing a new substandard road on the public use easement. The variances the Hendricksons have requested should be denied because codes were put in place to make Girdwood's new roads safer than what previously existed. Tib Cabana, a local developer, had to follow these codes when he was granted permission to build Barron Avenue and Tanner Circle. Additionally, Verbier Way and Ruane in Girdwood also had to be built to code. And with these precedences, the Hendricksons should be required to build to code also. The community of Girdwood has overwhelmingly objected to these variances, and our elected officials have voted unanimously against them. We ask that you follow these objections and deny these variances as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Patrick Doran? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Of the public that wish to speak this evening.
On? Yes. My name is Mike Edrington. I'm the co-chair of Girdwood Board of Supervisors, so I believe that gives me 5 minutes, although I do not plan to use all of that time.
Could you spell your last name?
I will do so, yes, certainly. It's Mike Edrington, Edgington.
Thank you.
Co-chair and land use supervisor, Girdwood Board of Supervisors. So GBOS, Girdwood Board of Supervisors, combines both service area responsibilities, which includes road maintenance, and we act as community council, so we're speaking basically on behalf of both components. You have a letter of objection from GBOS in the packet. I think it's page 65 of the staff report. So I'm going to briefly cover a couple of points there and then discuss some other issues which have come to light since. It's been a very long journey to get to this point. It's been about a year and a half of discussions, many very long and wide community-wide discussions in the recent past as well, about both our land use meetings and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, as you can see from some of the vote totals in the letter itself. There's been extensive public input, definitely the majority of them against the variances. It's also brought up many, many tangential issues, some of which have been touched on tonight, which extend beyond the issue of the variances themselves. The three reasons we gave for an objection are that there does appear to be completely legal and feasible alternatives for access to the subdivided lot. So variances appear to be, I think in the words of the original planning report, for convenience, not for necessity. There is a extensive community interest in minimizing the number of crossings of the Girdwood bike path and the number of access points on Alyeska Highway. And our third point is sort of somewhat parochial. We have responsibility for road maintenance as well, and the status of the PUE as to whether it's a right-of-way, whether it's a road, whether it's dedicated or not dedicated has still not been resolved. If we end up with the responsibilities for maintaining that, then we have a very direct interest in the construction of that road itself. So it's one of the variances is for a narrower roadway. That limits the type of equipment we could use for maintenance if we are required to maintain. And like I said, I do not know what the status is. We have not got a clear decision on that. One of the other concerns is that as described, the road will partly be located on private property. The shoulder of the road will be located on private property. That has implications both for snow removal and also potentially maintenance tasks in the future. I didn't see anything in the packet which suggested there'd be a guaranteed easement for repair or maintenance. And the other issue I think we're concerned about is we have not just paving in code, there's also an alternative of using RAP, which would be our preferred solution. So while paving is not necessary, we wouldn't require paving, we wouldn't ask for that, we would like at least RAP to be used as a surface. We are concerned about this becoming a precedent for other more extensive road developments inside the valley. As far as we understand, I've checked with our local staff as well, since Title 21 was implemented, every road constructed in the valley has been to code or very, very close to code. And this would be significantly less than code. So I think there is a concern that this would open up the floodgates for future development with significantly substandard road access. Again, we still have not, we got new information today, as covered by planning, about the status of the PUE already having an IGP to make it into a road. So we are not clear who has responsibility for maintaining it. And therefore, I said our concerns are specifically with the road variances themselves. We do not have a concern with the bike path. We do have a concern of both the surfacing and the width of the roadway as proposed in the variance. Thank you.
Do we have, go ahead, Kevin Cross.
Thank you. So, do you oppose use of the public use easement for the purposes of access?
My understanding is the public use, as of information today, it's a public use easement and it's already been set aside for access.
All right. So, no, that's, yeah, because that is the definition of a public use easement is to access private property.
Right, and again, our understanding is the purpose of that PUE was to access the lot behind when it was developed, not to access lots at the side. That's our understanding.
Yeah, and then most of the public testimony is that this creates a safety hazard. I guess my question is more along the lines of just accessing one, potentially two properties, but this was originally set as a public use easement to access 43 acres that was then supposed to be subdivided.
Correct, yes. In which case the road would be built to full standards with full sight lines, et cetera, and obviously that's not the proposals in front of us today.
So, and you're wanting it built to the standard of supporting a subdivision of 43, or whatever that 43
That's not quite what I said.
Okay,
What I said is we have concerns specifically over maintenance of the roadway over the driveway/roadway. Again, status is unclear, as proposed.
Yeah, because if it becomes used for one property, then essentially it's like a driveway, and are you paying to maintain somebody's driveway?
We don't know because we don't understand the status, and I said new information seems to be coming to light each day. So I would have given you a completely different answer yesterday. New information came to light today about the IGP, which we were not aware of beforehand.
All right,
so that, to me, makes it look more as if there's more likelihood that it'll be a service area responsibility for maintenance.
And that's a good point, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's more than one access way to those 43 acres.
My understanding is there are two. I think the petitioner earlier said three. I believe there are two. There's access from Sprout Road, and there's access through this PUE. So, and I believe both would need to be used if it was going to be developed at that size.
We were just reviewing, and I thought there may be 5 access points.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Muni website.
Oh, that's interesting. I definitely haven't seen that. I'd be intrigued as to what they actually are. Could you list them?
Oh, let's see what we've got here. I'm trying to zoom in to see if it gives me street names, but Mike's not on.
Some of those may be private driveways.
Yeah, I'm just on the land bank map site, and I remember I was working and improving the one on Sprout. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was about a year and a half ago where we accessed that one. And then you've got further down, there's a cul-de-sac. It's giving me the name of the owners. Osborne. Some of those may be private where it loops in and they actually encroach well into the land bank. I think there's a set aside in the back of Diet. Here's another one, MOA Street Main, which is Juniper. Juniper is another access.
I believe if you look at the map there, that access is a different parcel, not the 43 acres which Ms. Ward described earlier.
Oh, yeah, you're right. As I get down a little bit further.
My analysis shows 2 access points, and I believe both of them would be needed for that 43 acres.
Yeah, Lindy Drive looks like it accesses.
Which I believe is a private driveway. I think if you look at the ownership of the land itself, there are only 2.
Okay.
There's this PUE and the Sprout Road are the only things which actually abut that, which give access to that piece of land.
Thank you.
So this PUE is going to be needed and actual full access at some point in time.
If the land is developed, yes.
Is there access to that 43 acres from some other direction?
As I said, my understanding is there is 2 access points, only 2 legal access points.
That come to this highway.
Which does not access the highway directly, but via other roads can access the highway, and this PUE.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mike Eddington? Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Before we begin a point of order, my name is Jonathan Kacher, and I'm the attorney here representing Doug Penn and Lori Van Heis. Staff has informed us that because I'm speaking, that they cannot speak. If they had spoken, they would each have 3 minutes. Because I'm speaking, I only get 3 minutes, and so my point of order and request is that I get both of their 3 minutes and therefore have 6 minutes.
You did submit a written
I did.
report that would provide greater detail?
I submitted a letter which I believe is part of the department's packet.
Yes.
And I apologize, it is very long, and I appreciate the board taking the time to study it.
Unfortunately, the board standard for hearings is you get 3 minutes.
All right, I'll do my best to be as brief as possible. I want to start with a couple of points, starting with Chairman Walker's question. Is this purported street going to be built to complete intersection standards? It is not. It is a driveway. The permit that they're attempting to obtain from the Department of Transportation is a driveway permit. and a driveway is not safe. Now, you folks are here to uphold the law, and the law is that variances are the exception. They are not the rule. And in order to obtain a variance, you have to meet certain specific criteria, standards to justify the granting of the exception, which is the granting the exception of a variance. Now, as you've heard, they don't need to use the PUE for their so-called street, which is really a driveway. They have all the access they have ever needed through the existing bike path crossing and existing highway apron. There is no need for these variances to put this driveway, this unsafe driveway, on this very steep rainforest PUE. Now, the law as to these standards are informed by, the criteria are informed by the purpose and scope section of the variance portion of the municipal code. And that section tells us that variances are to provide limited relief, where strict compliance would make use of the applicant's land practically impossible. The applicant can subdivide. The applicant has access via the existing bike path crossing and the existing highway apron. The applicant does not need these variances to subdivide. These variances are not supported by a substantiated claim of undue hardship. There would be no hardship for the applicant to utilize the existing bike path crossing and the existing driveway. It's really a matter about her claim that amounts to inconvenience and financial expense, and that is not a ground for a legal granting of a variance in this code. A code that, by the way, there was a 5-year revision process of this code. And you just can't disregard those things because somebody wants to come along and make more money and save themselves money to create an unsafe driveway crossing of the bike path and the highway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for?
Who is your client?
I represent Doug Penn and Lori Van Heis. They have lot 14, which is a lot that's immediately south of the PUE. So you've got lot 14, you've got the PUE, then you have the Hendricksons, lot 15, and then you have the Martins, remainder lot 15. That's the geography.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Who's that online?
This is Jeremy Hurst, land surveyor, prepared the preliminary plat.
Through the chair, that would be, well, go ahead. I think you have it.
Yeah, I don't think that you're entitled to ask him questions. You'll be offering an opportunity for rebuttal afterwards, but it's now the board's opportunity to ask questions of the Doug and Laura council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for? Go ahead, Kevin.
I am. I'm just intrigued. Don't imagine your services or your long drafted letter were inexpensive. What is there any other negative impacts to Douglas and Lori Penn that the other than safety at the intersection here, which seems to be the largest concern from the public? Any other concerns we should know about that is utilizing this public use easement might be detrimental to them as property owners?
Well, in answer to your first comment, I'm doing this pro bono for my friends.
I appreciate that.
To answer the substantive question, if this PUE was properly and lawfully developed as an actual road, then the Penns would have access via that PUE and that road to subdivide and develop their land to access the PUE and that road. By building this little driveway, they are not able to do so. And again, they have a driveway that comes onto and crosses a bike path, and then immediately to their left, as they're heading down their street, just feet away, we're now going to have this new driveway, which is in fact dangerous.
Yeah. Well, okay, so to reiterate, if I may put it in different words, that it is a public use easement, and therefore, if it were built to a standard, they, as part of the public, should be able to access it as well.
That would be an outcome that they could utilize. They could not do so if this driveway variance is granted.
All right, excellent, thank you.
Sure.
The 43 acres behind this area, this is one of the two access points to use and access that 43 acres.
Well, my understanding is that there are presently two access points that are actually existing and developed. This would be a third that, if it was actually created and developed and built as a roadway, could also not only provide access via traffic, but would also provide a sewer main to serve those residences on the, God knows when will be developed 43 acres. We've heard anywhere from years to, if not decades, before that's actually going to happen.
And if that roadway, if a full roadway was put in on this access point, the driveways on the lots to either side of this would no longer be necessary to this highway, correct?
Well, that's an interesting question as to whether they could condemn the existing driveways. So I actually don't know the answer to that question. And moreover, sir, the remainder lot 15, so you have the Pens, the PUE 15, and then remainder lot 15, which shares at present bike path crossing and driveway. That remainder lot 15 would not have access to the PUE road that we're talking about. So I don't think that particular access, that 15 and remainder of lot 15 share, could be condemned and thereby taken away from remainder lot 15.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, do we have any other members of the public that wish to speak this evening? I think we've reached the end. May we have petitioners to come forward for rebuttal?
Thank you, Clerk. Again, Christina Hendrickson. So back in 2019, mere days after I closed on this property, I sat down with Bob Dole and Kent Colhase to talk about the IEAR, specifically how it was not meeting the needs within the municipality, how many times we were having to grant variances, et cetera. The testimony from Eric Visser demonstrated that there was a policy in the works specifically to encompass the parameters that I've discussed this evening. So that's pretty much why the department has moved forward on this. It does have a width of 16 feet, turnaround distances, difference in drainage, organics and surfacing that all match what I have put forth here today. The idea that we've had a significant narrative change from the opposition back in 2019 and in the winter of 2020, the majority of the testimony to date in the public forum was about trees and maintaining the quality and the characteristics of the lower part of the valley, which is heavily treed. So that's one of the reasons that we decided to make sure that we had a narrow 16-foot road and then moreover have 2 feet of the snow load over on lots 1 and lots 2 in order to maintain that vegetative buffer. That has no standing to the decision makers, so the narrative has moved over to having a full development. So on the predicated on safety. If we were to have a large, full-blown road on Lot 14A, it would attract more parking, which is what people seem to want within a public use easement. There are primitive trails that trespass on Lot 18A and called Tract A that access the Beaver Pond Trail. Girdwood in the past year has endured multiple public meetings where residents are sick and tired of people parking at the end of roads such as Timberline to access Virgin Creek Falls, or have excess parking when short-term rentals are used on Echo Ridge. The narrow design of our road eliminates those as well as prohibits nuisance traffic. Further, if you're going to have a bigger road that's got more parking, well, then you're going to have more people crossing the bike path on a vehicle. A smaller road that only accesses a single-family home and up to a duplex has a more narrow line of sight more narrow traffic pattern. And as demonstrated in the conditions of the recommendations from the department, we still have to go through engineering, right-of-way, and follow what the DOT has given as a suitable prism to ensure that we have a safe approach, that the engineering is the less than 10% grade, etc. All of those have to be met in order for us to construct, and I have an excellent team that has been able to demonstrate that elsewhere in the municipality, and that is why I've joined on with them. This is not an unnecessary crossing. This crossing is inevitable. The Department of Transportation failed to do an adequate survey when resurfacing the Alyeska Highway and redoing our Gird-to-Bird Pike Path in 2017. There are multiple crossings that are unnecessary on Alyeska Highway. There are addresses on Hottentot and Sproat Road that are primary access, but yet those residences take their access off of an apron that crosses over the Gird-to-Bird Bike Path and onto their property. This, unfortunately, was an oversight by the Department of Transportation, did not consult with the Municipality of Anchorage. Therefore, there is no current legal access to Lot 14A. The semantics of having to apply for a driveway permit is that that's just how the DOT calls it. It's an AAR. It's a driveway permit. Moreover, the Muni has also called the full development of this road unnecessary, as shown on page 10 of the staff report. And the information provided about the intergovernmental agreement was presented in the Land Use Committee and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors Committee in slides in exceptional detail to the public that demonstrated that in 1982, Lot 14A was set aside to Public Works, and in 2019, it was moved over to an IGP so that the Project Management and Engineering Office and Real Estate Services could utilize it for its intended purpose from 1982, which is to build a road. Moreover, the cases that were brought forth in the letter to you, I briefed this weekend. They are not germane. They are a very far stretch regarding unnecessary and undue hardship, and I appreciate the ability to come forward with the benefits for the community, the benefits of having additional housing, the benefits of having additional tax dollars into the area-wide bucket through development of a single-family home on the lot as well as up to a duplex, and also the benefit of the future owners of Lot 1. I think the property taxes take care of themselves, and should we move forward with the variances as far as street maintenance is concerned, I'd be very happy to plow 14A as I build it. There are plenty of other people who have to do that. Glacier Creek Drive is a public use easement. Juniper Drive is a public use easement. They receive roads maintenance services from the Girdwood Valley service area. I understand that is not germane or in your purview, but we don't have a problem with plowing it. But our tax dollars pay for that type of service. I will stop my time now and be ready for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Cross.
You had mentioned that, and the one thing, so I'm just going to go through some of the public testimony and some of their concerns. One is that we're creating an unsafe intersection. The existing driveway for the cabin is staying, correct? I mean, that's because it's a shared driveway for the neighbor to the north.
Not entirely, and that's one of the reasons why I have Jeremy on the phone this evening. He is our
Okay.
surveyor. When the DOT arbitrarily replaced that driveway, it's not halfway in between the lot lines. Unfortunately, only a few feet are within my purview.
Okay, so pretty much it's access to the gentleman to the north then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
To
you're
lot
now
15.
establishing, okay. And because what I'm trying to determine is, are we really talking about, I've heard a lot that it's a road and it's an unsafe road, but really I would almost say it's a shared driveway is what we're looking to do here, it seems like, to access your two lots. But the grade would be a consideration, I mean, basically, and you are stating that it's going to be done to a 10% or less grade, which is code. Okay, well, that's excellent. The
Yes.
other, so we had street, basic safety. The other one was maintenance, and that it was going to be undue maintenance costs on the individuals. Although it is in a public use easement, so at some point that road will get developed and it'll become a cost maintenance issue regardless. But is there some sort of agreement, or is there? I mean, I guess how do we? You're willing to maintain the road and plow it?
So the answer, yes. Your misunderstanding was almost the same as mine when I went into the public forum on this one. Our Kyle Kelly is our municipal maintenance manager. He gave the example of the development extending Alberg. So Alberg used to stop just at the resort and now continues further on so that you can access our 5K, and it's got the recreational area down there. That was a full road built using some state dollars, actually. And when it came to who was going to maintain it, even though the state and the resort built it, it was still given to the Girdwood Valley Service Area for maintenance. Now, I'm not sure what type of parameters are considered by GBSA in order to take that on. But in negotiations at this time, if they would like to plow it, they're welcome to plow it. But if they need me to plow it as a condition of moving forward with this development, I'm happy to do so as well.
I guess the next question is, how is that maintained if the road becomes pitted because we're going to a lower standard? If it gets potholes, if it gets those kind of things, then whose responsibility is it to regrade and then maintain the road?
I would understand it would be mine,
Snow
respectfully.
removal is one thing, I guess, but then would you need to get, I guess my question is, would you need a permit or would you need permission to then alter a road within a PUE? Because therein lies their concern. You see what I'm saying? Like,
course.
it's one thing to have intention of doing it, but then what is the reality of it actually occurring? And then does it become where it's a bad driveway, but then the municipality doesn't allow you to even fix the road because it's not on your property, and then it becomes an arduous task and you're now in the forever spinning wheels of bureaucracy just trying to maintain your road.
Oh, the spinning wheels of
so
bureaucracy,
let me just refer to this. You could have avoided a lot of this by doing a flag lot. Why didn't you do a flag lot?
I did not want to do a flag lot for the following reason. We met in 2019 with the municipality, and we looked at, after looking at the contours as well as the limited access from the current access, what we decided was it would be most advantageous to do an access on the south side. So in doing so, I met with the Department of Transportation to ask about obtaining a driveway permit to access along our south side and do a flagpole lot. When meeting with DOT, they reminded me that because I'm next to a public use easement, when that road is developed, we would have to take our access off of that road, as would the Penn's property to the south. And therefore, the DOT did say that when they are next to a dedicated right-of-way, they would have to take their access off of it, and their current access via Alyeska Highway would be removed.
Okay, well, that makes sense because so if you did a flag lot, eventually that POE is going to go in, that road's going to go, and then we have two accesses right next to each other, which is even worse than allowing access of a POE, depending on your opinion on that. Okay, well, that...
And respectfully, I know a lot of people don't necessarily plan for the future. I mean, this was dedicated back in 1982, made into an IGP in 2019. There's a lot of wording within the staff report regarding supposed potential. They can't suppose it. Nobody's got a crystal ball. Girdwood's going gangbusters on property right now. We've got an RFP out for development for Holton Hills at the end of Hightower Road. We have Alyeska Ski Resort is building a 20,000 square foot spa facility to be opened in August. And that's 40 full-time employees for which we do not have housing. And so there could be a boom here in the future, especially under the new administration and new leadership at the real estate department, although that person's going to have really big Robin shoes to fill. So respectfully, I'm planning for the future and hoping to build a road at this time that anticipates future development within the Girdwood Valley service area.
Okay, thank you. My questions are answered.
This is Don Porter. When you get a chance, I have questions.
Don, you have the floor.
So I would first like for you to reiterate that the flag lot would then end up paralleling the PUE.
That is true, Mr. Porter.
And would DOT, did they say if they would give you a driveway permit for such a lot?
No, they did not, sir.
No,
they would not give me the permit because of...
Oh, they would not give you the permit.
Yes.
So right off the bat, you would not be able to get access onto Alyeska Highway.
Yes.
From Lot 2.
Yes.
So that's a no-go. My other question is in relation to Lot 1 use versus Lot 2. You mentioned one is a duplex?
It is currently configured to have over 16,801 square feet to accommodate a potential duplex in the future.
Lot 2?
Lot 1,
Lot 1.
Which is closest to the Alyeska Highway and the bike path.
So right now, it's a single-family home.
At this,
correct?
Yes, the whole lot, not subdivided, is a single-family GR1 zoning.
Right, but I guess where I'm going is you mentioned the duplex, so I wanted to get an understanding of so Lot 1 could support a duplex in the future?
Yes.
And Lot 2, what about that one?
Lot 2 is over 21,000 square feet, and right now the intent is to build a single-family home on it, as demonstrated in the covenants included in the packet.
Okay. Okay, I wonder, further questioning on Lot 14. Is the road that's proposed compatible with driveways to Lot 14?
The proposed access on Lot 14A, the public use easement, is compatible with the driveways that would be on Lots 1 and Lots 2 of the proposed subdivision.
What about Lot 14, if it were to take access near Lot 2 access?
Lot 14 is not my lot.
Right. But at some point in time, DOT is going to tell Lot 14 that they have to take their access from the right of the public use easement. Is that what I heard?
Yes, when it becomes a dedicated right-of-way, when the municipality develops it to its full code, whatever that may be at that time, yes, the Department of Transportation will require the adjoining lots to take access from that dedicated right-of-way as opposed to Alyeska Highway, which is the only dedicated highway at this time.
Right. And I actually thought I heard that something about subdividing Lot 14 as well in the future.
I cannot speak to that.
Because I guess where I'm going is that both, if that were subdivided, then it would take access from the PUE as well, because it could not have access onto Alyeska Highway. But if the driveway that you're building, the limited roadway that you're building, it would be compatible with driveways to Lot 14, is the question.
Respectfully, Mr. Porter, the Lot 14A is 1.5 acres with a single-family home on it at this time. Should it be subdivided in the future, there are a couple of different configurations that applicant might be able to work through with the municipality. I have found them very responsive when trying to determine how to subdivide a lot and how to provide legal access to it.
I'm sorry, Lot 14A?
No, Lot 14.
Has a single-family home on it?
No, Lot 14 has a single-family home on it. That is the Pins you heard from their...
Oh, yes, yes. Okay. Great. Okay. Okay. Well, what I'm getting at is consolidation of driveways to a side street is a safer solution than multiple driveways accessing across the pathway onto the highway. And that is DOT's goal, actually, is to reduce crossings.
That is the
and that's why they would, oh, go ahead.
That is the DOT's goal, but whether or not the municipality of Anchorage intends to dedicate public use easements in Girdwood at this time is not a supposed action. There are other undedicated public use easements that from which they take residential access. For example, Juniper has 3 residences, 4 if you count the duplex at the top. So there's a duplex, a single-family home, and a single-family home. All take their driveway access from that public use easement, and it's a named street, but it is not a dedicated right-of-way.
Understood. Suffices to say, I guess, that if Tract A, 18A, or Tract A, whatever you want to call it, were developed, they would most certainly choose to dedicate some right-of-way to access if they started taking access through 14A.
I agree with that statement, Mr. Porter.
And that is the stated purpose of 14A, and so it's, at some point in time, if they develop it, it will go bigger than what is already shown.
Yes. And at this time, I'll point out that the staff packet on page 10 said that because we're not accessing Lot 14A at this time, the full-fledged development of the current road standards to Lot 14A would be unnecessary.
Understood. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the bigger picture here, and I appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Mr. Porter. As I said, since 2019, this has been a journey with the planning department to the point where even we're having to figure out code and citations and definitions at the end of last week.
Right. One final question, actually, and you pointed this out earlier. The driveway that you currently have across the pathway only has 3 feet of that driveway onto your lot 15?
Approximately 3 feet. May I defer to my surveyor on the bridge line? Jeremy?
Close, 3 feet's close enough, but thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Kevin Cross.
Yeah, so I had, as I looked at this, something just dawned on me. Have you talked to the Pins about their driveway and where it accesses and why it's not onto public use easement and why we didn't do 3 properties onto that public use easement at once? Because it seems to me as if, and maybe the staff can correct me, that if that's ever developed or if you put a driveway, I mean, right now, your lots, because they abut the public use easement, can't access, right? So we understand that it's always, your driveway has to access the area of least amount of traffic, right? They don't want these driveways accessing a busy road, which is part of why they're forcing your driveways out onto the public use easement. But why the Pins to the south aren't also being tied into this is kind of interesting, why not all 3 properties are utilizing this. It seems to me like that would almost be more beneficial to them because then we eliminate one more access crossing the bike trail. Now we've taken 3 properties and funneled it out to something that's more safe than driveway. So were there any conversations regarding their participation in accessing that, just out of curiosity?
No.
No. was curious why that wasn't considered, but all right, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you. And the matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the requested variance from AMC 2109070 F5A, Transportation and Connectivity, Local Residential Streets? Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Yeah, in case S12612, Turtle Hill subdivision, lots 1 and 2, move to approve the request for variance AMC 21.09.070 F5A, transportation and connectivity, local resident streets, requiring streets to be paved or shall be non-dust generating non-porous materials such as wrap or chip seal over an engineered base, subject to 1, recording a suitable plat within 24 months of approval of any approved time extensions.
And do we have a second on that motion? It has been seconded by Mark Seward. Kevin, would you please speak to your motion?
Yeah, so I want to just open this up for us along the board so we can talk about this, and so I'm moving it forward. You know, the way it, you know, looking at this, this is really just almost like a driveway permit in a public use easement. I mean, if lot 14 is ever developed, or tract A, lot 14, that 43 acres at Heritage Land Bank is ever developed, and this needs to become, it's all going to get removed. It's all going to get torn out. It's going to increase to a much greater standard. And then, so I mean, and they already said it's like 20 years out. So I guess my thought is, do we really have them build something to that kind of standard where it's going to go nowhere for 20, 30 years and have to be torn out and redone again? If it's just accessing 1 or 2 properties, then it really doesn't need to meet that high of a standard, and is that a reasonable hardship? And I guess I'm inclined to think that is kind of an unreasonable hardship on the individuals to require that level of engineering and cost expense to access 2 driveways, that essentially is just adding 1 driveway because we're eliminating their access over there. I only see it as adding, what, couple cars a day at 1 spot? What is your thoughts on that, Mr. Walker?
Well, the first request for variance, as I understand it, is
non-just generating porous material. It has to do with the construction materials.
it's just the materials, right?
Yeah, just materials.
So, and I guess then the specific size and dimensions of it. 16,
well, that's B.
16 feet wide instead of the 20-foot wide that's otherwise required.
That's the next motion. That's B. That's a cruise from 21.09, which is for a bike path of at least 5 feet in width in either side of the street.
That's number 3 is the 20-foot.
Large frontage access, okay, connectivity requiring that the street shall be paved and shall not be just generating non-porous. It's also 20 feet wide, so it's 16 plus 2 feet on either side. It's a 20-foot wide driveway access. So
Well-
I guess I look at the approval for the request. I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on it because I don't think it's unreasonable.
You know, other than we've been given no evidence or testimony with respect to the costs involved, with respect to complying with this, and that it's not unreasonable with respect to the number of lots that are being put in. I think it's reasonable to go ahead and require the property to be, to have it be paved.
Don Porter requests to speak.
Please do.
The purpose of requiring a non-dust generating surfacing is due to how many it's going to be directly related to how many vehicles are accessing it. If it's not got a bunch of cars driving on it, it's not going to be dust generating. There's a lot of back and forth on a lot of people where they've been required to pave their driveways. They have very long driveways, and they've worked it down to they have to pave the apron on the access, and then the rest, maybe up to 50 feet of it. And then the rest of it is not required to be wrapped or paved because it's a driveway. And at this point in time, what I believe we're saying here is they're allowing a reduced standard. It will still support the emergency vehicle, but it just simply is not going to be a high volume situation. And so that's my thinking. And again, I agree with you, the statement that we haven't heard testimony in regards to the taking issue with no wrap. They're taking issue with other items, but the public is not taking issue with that particular item. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, Mr. Seward?
We'll just add that, Mr. Seward.
A couple comments on that. Paving on the street is always much slicker when we get the freezing weather. And wrap, if you've been on wrap roads or chip seal, it's a much better type of driving surface than paving is. Some paved streets get really slick, and I know they will in Girdwood area. They're going to have to do the ramp down there, excuse me, the access ramp, approaching that. The line of sight is good. It's about 90 feet. It's pretty flat going both ways, so the only concern for me would be going uphill on that, where I would support the motion of have it wrapped, and the ramp is going to be paved because the state's going to control that onto the Alyeska Highway. Thank you.
As I understand the motion, it's basically giving them a waiver from paving and dust generating material, including wrap. Am I misreading it here?
That's my understanding as well.
And so, I mean, we'd need to amend it if we're going to direct them that they've got to use a non-porous material such as wrap.
Okay.
Again, this is Don Porter, if I may. Wrap is considered a pavement.
So,
Thank you, Don. Go ahead, Kevin.
no, I was just going to say, they're requesting a variance that the local street shall be paved or shall be dust-generating non-porous materials, such as wrap or chip seal, or over an engineered base to allow for Turtle subdivision to construct a 16-foot wide gravel road with 2-foot shoulders on its side. So it's a 16-foot wide gravel road with 2-foot shoulders. So 20 feet wide gravel.
Mark Seward.
Okay, that was my misunderstanding. I apologize to everybody. I would prefer that to be gravel better. The larger material under the tires on the hillside is a safer driving surface for me. That would be better than pavement or wrap. I've been on both, all three. Wrap is a little bit better than pavement, I guarantee that. But thank you.
So the exception or the variance we're asking for is only due to the width, not to the material that's going to be used to make the road?
Yeah, and to gravel. So it's a 16-foot with 2 shoulders and then, okay, it's articulated a little clearer on page 8. The petitioner is requesting a variance from AMC 2109.070 F5. A local street shall, this is what the ordinance says, a local street shall be paved or shall be non-dust generating non-porous material such as wrap or chip seal over an over-veneered base. What they're allowing, what we're doing is to allow them to construct a 16-foot wide gravel road with 2-foot shoulders in the dedicated public use easement. So again, normally we have a 20-foot wide road with 3-foot 5 shoulders, right? It's normally 21 feet, 10-foot 11. 16, allowing 8 feet for either side, 8 feet for 2 vehicles, and then 2-foot shoulder instead of 3-foot 5. So it's a 20-foot wide and it's just gravel, which is...
Any other findings the board would like to make on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the vote.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
Chair Walker?
Aye. May I have a motion with request to variance from 2109.070 F5D, local streets? Mr. Cross.
Okay, regarding case S12612 Turtle Hill Subdivisions Lot 1 and 2, I move to approve the requested variance from AMC 21.09.070 F5D, Transportation and Connectivity Local Road Streets, for a pedestrian path bikeway of at least 5 feet in width of either paved or treated with non-dust generating material shall be provided on at least one side of the street and detached if possible, subject to 1, recording a suitable plat within 24 months of approval and any approved extensions.
Thank you. And Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Would you please speak to your motion?
Yeah, this is, to make it clear, this is to eliminate the requirement for a bike or pathway of at least 5 feet in width along the PUE. So where the driveway, the 20-foot driveway will be, not having to put a bike path in there. And this is a reasonable variance because it would be a bike trail to nowhere. It would just go back past the 2 lots. They can ride there. It would just basically be a bicycle trail servicing those 2 lots and possibly the Penn's property across the street, but their driveway doesn't access it. So putting in a bike trail next to what is essentially just a driveway easement seems to me like it's a reasonable variance request. One, the bike trail then would then have to be, the public's concern was that the cost of maintenance. If you're putting a bike trail that goes nowhere and that becomes rooted or it becomes unsafe, then it would be the public's responsibility to maintain a paved bike trail because it falls in the PUE. More likely so than maybe the road for road maintenance, which is a driveway. So I think one, if there serves the public's best interest, if one, there wasn't a bike trail, it would prevent people from parking or accessing or utilizing that. It's a bike trail that would go nowhere, and it would also provide unnecessary maintenance expense in the future.
Do we have any other findings that the board would like to make on variance request number 2?
This is Don Porter.
Don.
Request to speak. We have not heard from the Trails Committee in any way, shape, or form that they desire the trails be put in along the right-of-way at this point in time. Correct?
I don't recall having any input from Trails on that issue, no.
So until such time as there's higher level of development on 18A or Tract A, the need for the trail is not there.
Thank you. Do we have any other findings on the trail issue? I guess I would make the additional findings that there was no discussion from the public that they wanted any additional bike trails beyond that which they already have along the highway. If they thought, they could have offered testimony that it would be nice to have a pull-off stop. But at this point, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in developing access to the 43 acres in Tract A. And it's the lack of the cities or the property owner in Tract A developing that's basically creating the hardship in this case, where property owners are stuck with roadway access that's preventing them from having driveways because they're right next to a public use easement. And so I would be in favor of granting the variance for the bike path. Mr. Cross.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Do we have any other findings from the board? I guess the other findings are that it would not be detrimental to the public welfare at this time to not have that trail that goes out to a lot that's got 43 acres that's not being developed. It doesn't nullify the intent or purpose of the subdivision. It's not eliminating the requirement in the future to have a bike path when the full road is built out. Undue hardship would result from strict compliance with it, putting in an extra trail 150 feet long that goes to nowhere, doesn't provide any measurable benefit at this point in time. And I would be in favor of that motion. With that, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Mr. Porter.
Aye.
Mr. Cross.
Aye.
Mr. Seward.
Aye.
Ms. Ritz.
Aye.
Chair Walker.
Aye. May we have a motion for variance 3, requested variance from 2109-070F5F, local streets. Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Yeah, regarding case S12612 Turtle Hill subdivision, move to approve the request of variance AMC 21.09.070 F5F, transportation and connectivity, local residential streets for minimum cross-section dimensions for local streets subject to, 1, recording a suitable plat within 24 months of approval and any approved time extensions.
Mark Seward has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
So this, again, kind of overlaps with the first variance. They're worded so that it looks like, but this more specifically, which requires a minimum street width of 20 feet to allow construction of a 16-foot wide gravel road with 2-foot shoulders. So as opposed to a 20-foot with 2 3-foot shoulders on either side, we're doing a 16-foot with 2-foot shoulders for the Alaska Highway to the proposed driveway access with Lot 2 within the dedicated PUE. We've done this before. We've approved other reduced sizes pretty much when we're talking about minimal traffic. This property, I mean, even if both houses or both properties contain, let's say, 6 cars on the duplex and 2 on the single-family home, which would be a lot, we're talking about 8 vehicles, and that's well below the requirements for road size. So I see that, holding the petitioner up to a higher road standard when we're really talking about a shared driveway easement through a PUE for 2 lots. I think the request for the variance is reasonable. There's also no bike trail on there. I guess that would be the one question you have is there's no bike trail. Do you give a variance for width when that just means there may be those individuals walking along the side of the road in a PUE? That's a good question.
Any additional findings? I think that we should not be granting a variance from the width of 16 feet. From 20 feet down to 16. I think they should build the full width of 20 feet. In reality, it's not a driveway, it's a road. It's a public road, and it will be a public right-of-way that the members of the public have a right to access. It should be built wide enough to provide a public benefit in addition to the benefit that's being given to the people there. The ability of people to drive their cars or trucks and park there and unload their bicycles and access the bike trail from that location should be allowed. And those that would like to access the trails across the Tract A and into the mountains should be given access. They have access now because that lot is accessible. It is a public use easement even as it sits here tonight. And I would like to see the full road width constructed with the 3-foot shoulders. Do we have any other comments from the board?
Don Porter, request to speak.
Yes, Don.
So that kind of sort of flies in the face of the reduced tree discussion, the tree clearing discussion. That local street cross-section also includes the pathway, and it also includes 3.5-foot to 5-foot shoulders, not just 3-foot shoulders. Plus, it also includes drainage ditches on both sides as a requirement. And so it's not just clearing 20 feet wide, it's not just clearing 25 feet wide, but it's also clearing at least 6 feet of ditches on both sides. We've approved the variance for no pathway, but the street cross-section, the local street dimension that we're looking at is significantly wider than just 20 feet and maybe 3-foot shoulders. It's 25 feet plus at least 12, so it's 37 feet wide. Clearing. So I would maybe ask you to think about whether we're now piecing and parting out of the local street cross-section what pieces we're approving and not approving, rather than just removing the requirement to meet the local street standard, including all the ditches and the 5 foot, 3.5 foot or 5 foot shoulders that are shown on page 8.
Any other comments from the board? Mark Seward.
I agree with Mr. Porter's statements there. On page 14 and on page 3, DOT refers to this as a driveway and a driveway permit, but now we're turning it into a street, which I think is prohibitive for this area and for basically 2 lots, 150 feet, 200 feet from the main highway. So I would support this motion as stated. Thank you.
Kevin.
Again, I think it's important to point out that the petitioner, because they abut the public use easement, their driveways have to access out onto the public use easement. We've already discussed that the staff already said they couldn't do a flag lot. They won't allow them to put that driveway out onto a busy street. So, I mean, having them build something to road standard that's basically they just want to access the back lot. And then when they do the larger development behind it on lot 14, tract 1, that'll all get resolved. The bike trail will go in, the utility easements, all that, but that's at a much larger stage. You might look at this as just a temporary driveway until that's developed, just for them to access the back of that lot too. I mean, otherwise it becomes landlocked. And the Muni is the one who's requiring that they access the PUE. So one is, I have to put a driveway in, my driveway has to go to the PUE, but then I have to build a road that's essentially a driveway. So I'm inclined to give the variance. I think that's, building something that highest standard that feeds one property. Even the Penns who are off the property to the south, they're not even being required to access that. I don't know why. They go directly out on the street. They abut a public use easement. Their driveway shouldn't be there. So I feel as if that's unreasonable hardship on the petitioner. And so I'm looking to support the variance.
Do we have any other findings at this time? With that, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Cross?
Aye.
Mr. Seward?
Aye.
Ms. Ritz?
Aye.
Chair Walker?
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the request for variance from AMC 2108-030L1?
Through the chair, I do believe that one has been removed. Staff has said that is no longer because they're actually being required to access the PUE, the denial of request for frontage access, it doesn't apply in this case. Is that correct, staff?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, that is correct. D is struck, as you have spoken, staff finds that the intent of that code section is met, therefore it's not required.
And then that also impacts E4, correct?
That is correct.
So on E4 is no longer, it's also been abolished.
Mm-hmm. With that, can we have a motion to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1 through 6, with the exception of number 4? Looks like Kevin has moved. Do we have a second? Valerie Ritz is seconded. Kevin, would you please speak to your motion?
Regarding case S12612, I move to approve the plat for 24 months subject to the following conditions. Conditions 1, 2, 3, striking 4, 5, 5A and B, and 6. 6A and A1.
Thank you. And Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, you know, the public testimony on this, I think they made 90% of it came down to public safety. I mean, really a lot of it was just, is this driveway, is this access to this property, is it creating a safety hazard? And that's ultimately, when we do variances, that's the thing that gives the greatest weight. Is it really creating a safety issue? And this is a public use easement. This was specifically set aside for accessing public property. It was intended to be a road of some magnitude, although right now it's really just a driveway. But the truth is, it inevitably, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, it will be a pretty large artery that feeds, which potentially will feed that 43 acres, in which case I foresee that potentially, who knows how far in the future, having to have street lights and have everything. And so, I mean, it'll be a much larger development. And of course, then you should be really, then the really question of how the traffic studies and all that get into effect. But, you know, I think it's important that we lead through some of the standards. They got to obtain an engineering driveway plans to construct a 16-foot gravel road with 2-foot shoulders, have a right-of-way permit in place required for driveway construction to include portions of intersection. They're having to work with the ADOT and PF right-of-way to pave standards. And so, you know, where it connects, crosses the bike trail and connects to the highway, will meet all the safety requirements. And what we're really talking about is the driveway access that accesses 2 lots. 2 lots that they couldn't do a flag lot if they wanted to. And so I'm inclined to support the plat for 24 months approve the plat for 24 months subject to those conditions.
Do we have any other findings the board would like to make?
Don Porter requests to speak.
Don, you have the floor.
I just would like to echo the assertion about the flag lot not being approved. DOT would most certainly look at 14A being the right-of-way, and they would not approve of driveway on the highway for Lot 2. And that precludes access to the highway, and so they must take their access from the PUE or a lot 14A, whatever you want to call it. I just wanted to emphasize that.
Thank you. Are there any other findings? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Mr. Porter.
Aye.
Mr. Cross.
Aye.
Mr. Seward.
Aye.
Ms. Ritz.
Aye.
Chair Walker.
Aye. And the motion has passed. With that, that concludes our business. Are there any appearance requests for this evening? Any other persons to be heard? In that case, we will now adjourn. It is 8:38.